finally we have some heat here in Denmark, and it is almost end of the June 2024. So I want to share with you my top 10 or my all-time favorite 10 high heat fragrances. Without any further ado, I want to start by House of Thierry Mugler. I have here Mugler Cologne. It is not very sophisticated or complex type of fragrance. It doesn't have that much weight to it. It is a very fresh, clean, soapy, very little green and slightly woody at the dry down, like soft vetiver at the dry down, but main atmosphere of fragrance is like a bar of soap, exactly. It doesn't have that much, let's say, complimenting factor to it or sex appeal vibe, but it is fair enough. You're gonna smell just clean. Under the sun heat, it is difficult to handle most of the fragrances, but this one is a very airy, clean, traditional, soapy type of fragrance. Smells unisex. I can get like 4 to 5 hours plus longevity max with this one, and the clothing 8 hours. And projection and sillage is like a bar of soap, exactly. It is not wow or loud. It is like close to your skin, exactly like a bar of soap. Let's say to this one, a bar of soap in a bottle, Mugler Cologne. Let's continue by House of Prada. This one is not as popular as few years before, but I don't care that much about popularity of a fragrance when it comes to my personal enjoyment or usage. But when I want to suggest it, I don't suggest that much old school or outdated fragrances, although it doesn't smell that much outdated. Prada Luna Rosa, the regular one. I like that cooling, refreshing, cold feeling atmosphere of this fragrance, and it is herbal, airy, but has a dried herbal vibe to it, if you know what I mean. For example, dried lavender and dried mint, not fresh type of lavender and mint. It is very dried, herbal, and very little citrusy at the background. It is very airy and transparent. Another thing that I really enjoy about this fragrance is that strong character of it. It has a very memorable scent profile. It is signature scent worthy type of fragrance. Performance is average, 5-6 hours max on my skin, and projection and sillage is again average and cloudy for first hour and a half. Next one is from House of Versace, another airy fragrance. I like mostly airy and inoffensive fragrances for high heat. I have a little bit different experience with this one. Versace Man Eau Fresh. At the very first sniff I said, man, it doesn't smell at all. It's like very airy, and I thought, okay, gonna last max 20 minutes on my skin. Then I gave it like 20-30 sprays. I was choking. It lasts very crazy. I didn't know that was gonna happen. Just, it's me maybe, just be easy on the trigger. I have to say to you, it smells very transparent and airy, but gonna last and project, and everybody will notice you. About the scent profile, I would say it is like very airy and clear type of scent profile. Almost close to be aquatic, but it is not aquatic to my taste. It is like very little citrusy, airy, has that very soft woody vetiver vibe at the background of the fragrance, and gives very little, like 10% spiciness. I would say last on my skin 20 minutes, but based on compliments I can say also 6 to 7 hours, because I have received compliments 6-7 hours after applying this one. But personally I'm not able to smell it after 20 minutes. And projection and sillage is, let's say projection is below average, but sillage is bigger compared to the projection. I would say above average. It has above average type of sillage, leaves a very loud central kinda. My next favorite for high heat is from House of Dior. Man, it is a masterpiece, and it is underrated in my opinion. It is none other than Dior Homme Cologne, a simply beautiful fragrance. It doesn't have that much, let's say, complexity or notes. It is not a crowded fragrance. It is very simple, gonna smell like very little green. For whatever reason I get cypress. I say what I get from a fragrance, I don't read from platforms. So to my nose it is more about cypress like, and the citruses or that lemony vibe is very high quality and natural. It is very sour and realistic, and when it goes to the dry down we have more woodiness, but woodiness is again like, for example, Versace Man Eau Fresh or Thierry Mugler, vetiver and soft. It is one of the best citrusy fragrances out there in my opinion. Smells a little bit niche. You're gonna get different type of citrusiness here, for example like Serge of Neo. I like that outstanding stance of this fragrance. Performance is average, projection and sillage is also like average and soft. But let's say to this one 5 to 6 hours can last if you apply it on the skin and clothing at the same time. Let's continue by House of Parfums de Marly at number 6. When I want to have a little bit more complex type of fragrance or crowded without being that much offensive for high heat, I go with Setli by Parfums de Marly. A very yummy fragrance, I have to say, to this one. I don't mean that it's gourmand, but that atmosphere of fragrance is very mouth-watering to my taste. It is very fresh, citrusy. I get some sort of like lavendery vibe at the background of the fragrance, but it is more about citruses and mint, and a little bit it is carbonated and has that fizzy vibe to it. For a freshy, citrusy fragrance, sweetness is a little bit here added. I mean, citruses are not as sweet compared to this one, so it is like has a bit of added sweetness to it. It is herbal, and at the dry down gets ambroxany. I believe ambroxany works great with this DNA, but makes this fragrance to stay a bit into designer territory rather than a niche. I can get 5 to 6 hours performance longevity with this one. It is bad batch. Some of the batches are like 10 to 12 hours plus, but mine is like 5-6 hours, and projection and CRG is average for first hour and a half, and gets good compliments. I wanna continue with House of Yves Saint Laurent. One of my absolute all-time favorites from this house is L'Homme Ultime. One of the best rose-based fragrances ever created for men. It is very wearable. I'm not that much into rose-based fragrances, but this one is another story. If you have a smell Tuxedo from the same house, Yves Saint Laurent, it is like springy, summery version of that fragrance. It is like aquatic, citrusy version of Tuxedo with reduced, let's say, rose note, but still you can get that rose note here. This is my second bottle, my backup bottle, and the more stays in my collection, the stronger it gets. I can get like 8-10 hours plus longevity with this one, but at the beginning was like 5-6 hours max. It is like most of Yves Saint Laurent fragrances. Not a good performer at the beginning, but right now it is okay, I can say, and gets solid compliments. From House of Hermes, I have lots of great favorites from this house, I have to say, but for high heat, I would go with Eau Givre from this house. If I'm not mistaken, in the French, Eau Givre means cool water, something like that. So Eau Givre is a very citrusy fragrance, and it is green, gets woody at the dry down, and at the mids I can get some sort of floral vibes. Oh, I like this one. Opens up a bit acidic, let's say vinegary, but after like 30 minutes that vinegary vibe calms down and gets more, let's say, natural and citrusy. And at the dry down gets woodier. I think Parfums de Marly Perseus is going after this fragrance, but yeah, still I prefer this one better. And I can get some sort of pine needly vibe, which is a bit carbonated at the background of the fragrance. It's not mentioned in the note breakdown, but gives me that green pine needly vibe at the background, let's say. But at the dry down it is like still vinegary, citrusy and woody. Like most of Hermes fragrances, smells very high quality, but leans a bit more harsh or synthetic compared to, for example, Terre de Hermes. This one, at least to my nose, I can get 5-6 hours longevity with this one. If you apply it on the clothing, let's say 8 hours max, and projection and CRG is average. One of those great fragrances for indoor situations. Let's continue by House of Versace at number 3. One of those must-have fragrances in any man collection, in my opinion. It's like Swiss Army knife, you know, it's dressed up, dressed down, formal, casual, indoor, outdoor. It is a very comprehensive fragrance. I'm talking about Versace Pour Homme. It is very refreshing, aquatic, handsome, manly, and so I can say a bit floral fragrance because of neroli. When I say floral, don't shy away. So, and gets a bit woody, vetiver at the dry down, like most of the fragrances in today's list. I think they are going after Chanel Allure Sport line, but at some points I prefer this one better compared to Chanel Allure line, as it is cheaper and performance is almost identical, and they reduced that powderiness, that creamy vibe of it in the Chanel Allure, but it is way more aquatic also compared to that fragrance. If you are not into oceanic, seaweedy, aquatic vibes, this one is not for you. Next fragrance is more complimentary compared to most of fragrances in today's list. When I want to have a high heat friendly fragrance and at the same time I am in some kind of encounters environments and I want to be appealing and receive some attentions, I go with Acqua di Gio Profondo, as it is high heat friendly and still appealing enough. I would say to this one it is like aquatic, but aquaticness here is not like Versace from oceanic. It is watery and clear. It is sweet, very youthful, I have to say to this one, and has mastic at the background of the fragrance, which makes it more Italian job, let's say to this one. I can get 10-12 hours plus longevity with this one, but at the first 20 minutes or after first 20 minutes I can't smell it on myself. I get very fast nose blind to this one. Based on the compliments that I received, I can say it is a pretty long-lasting fragrance. Projection, sillage, projection I would say good or average for first 2 hours, but sillage is above average and way bigger compared to the projection. Number 1 for me goes to House of Creed. 2, this one, Silver Mountain Water. I really enjoy that different atmosphere of this fragrance. When I smelled it, I said, okay, it is nothing groundbreaking, but personally I haven't smelled anything like this before. To be honest, the smell is different compared to all of fragrances in my collection, except colognes of this one. So it is like musky, it is citrusy. Musk is a bit bigger compared to the citruses. It is leafy, slightly green, and has a very clean, exactly like the bottle, white feeling and atmosphere. At the first year was like 4 hours max in terms of longevity, but right now after a few years it is like 6 hours, 7 hours max in terms of longevity. So I can say I can get better longevity with this one right now. Projection is same, like average for first hour and a half, but sillage is again for whatever reason bigger compared to the projection, and I like it under the sun heat. Opens up better on my skin and gets very great compliments. To my nose, it smells unisex, leans a bit feminine, but I don't have problem with this one. I really enjoy this scent profile. Take care, guys.